In the photos it looked perfect, but when I opened the door, it wasn't even a shadow of what it promised. Millions of people have said that phrase after booking on Airbnb. And you've probably felt something similar too. For years, Airbnb was a revolution. Staying in unique places, cheaper than a hotel, feeling right at home. That was the promise, and for a good while, it worked. But things have changed. Today, booking on Airbnb can feel like playing Russian roulette with your money and your peace of mind. Because what seemed like a warm and affordable experience can turn into a trap disguised as a temporary home. Let's be honest, booking on Airbnb is no longer cheaper than a hotel, in most cases. The base prices might look competitive, sure, but once you add the cleaning fee, the service charge, the security deposit, and in some cases, an extra fee per additional person, you realize your budget getaway ended up costing more than a suite with breakfast included. And the most frustrating part is when they require you to clean the place yourself before you leave. Yes, you pay for cleaning, but they still leave you a list of chores. Take out the trash, wash the dishes, hang up the towels. And if you don't do it, you risk getting a bad review that ruins your reputation as a guest. Weren't you supposed to be on vacation? The funny thing is that Airbnb sold itself to the world as the most human experience. But in many cases, what you find is the opposite. Cold hosts who don't even greet you. Apartments with house rules stricter than a boarding school. Security cameras in suspicious places. Uncomfortable neighbors who don't want tourists in their building. And the worst part, photos that lie. A room that looks bright in the pictures ends up being a poorly lit cave, with sheets that seem like they haven't been washed in weeks. Of course, in the photo, the curtains were perfectly ironed. That's the magic of camera angles. Investing isn't just about buying a property. First, let's talk about the initial capital. To have a decent and competitive rental, it's not enough to just own an apartment. You have to furnish it, decorate it, equip it with appliances, bedding, dishes, a TV, fast internet, and all those little details that, if missing, end up in a 2-star review. And that's not even counting repairs, finishes, constant maintenance. Every guest leaves a mark. Some leave a scar. And then there's the war stock. Toilet paper, soap, coffee, water, deep cleaning after every booking. All of that is the host's responsibility. Guess how many people include that in their profitability calculations? Almost no one. And then they wonder why they're not making as much as they expected. Being an Airbnb host isn't just about putting a nice place on an app. You need to have liability insurance in case a guest gets injured. Damage insurance. Because yes, there are guests who break things, stain things, or simply take things with them. Local licenses and permits. Because many municipalities are starting to regulate and restrict short-term rentals. Sometimes, the host is also the receptionist, the cleaner, the accountant, and the customer service representative. A single bad experience, and your property gets pushed to the bottom of the algorithm. Airbnb penalizes complaints, even if they're not your fault. And the most frustrating thing is that Airbnb doesn't always respond the way you'd expect. Even if you have photos, evidence, messages, the system tends to protect the guest, not the host. Because Airbnb makes its money from people booking, not from you making a profit. We booked an apartment with an ocean view. When we arrived, there was neither an ocean nor an apartment. These days, a lot of scams work through fake emails, clone links, or direct messages suggesting you continue the conversation on WhatsApp. Once you leave the platform, you're completely unprotected. But you don't have to get scammed to have a bad experience. Many guests report problems with poor cleanliness, misleading descriptions, essential services not working, or uncomfortable living situations. It's one thing to stay in a modest place. It's another to be sold an ideal experience and end up sleeping uncomfortably, feeling watched, or even unsafe. Hotels have clear rules, certifications, quality controls, and regulatory bodies. But on Airbnb, everything depends on the host. Does it have a license? Is it legally authorized? Does it meet basic safety standards? In many countries, authorities still haven't managed to fully regulate the model. That means you could end up staying somewhere without permits, without insurance, and with no one to turn to if something serious happens. The photos are usually spectacular. Wide shots, perfect lighting, filters that make everything look clean and tidy. But when you arrive, the reality is different. That disappointment, beyond just the money, creates something worse, the feeling of having been deceived. And when that happens with several bookings, many users simply stop trusting the platform. And when something goes wrong, does Airbnb respond? Sometimes yes, but many other times, the support is slow, generic, or insufficient. Many travelers report that resolving a problem with Airbnb can take days, even if the trip is already over. And for those who traveled for important reasons, a wedding, an interview, a long-awaited vacation. That's not just frustrating, it's devastating. When you decide to become a host, you're not starting an independent business. You're operating within a system that decides what you can do, how, when, and at what price. And if you don't adapt quickly, you lose visibility. And without visibility, there are no bookings. Airbnb can block your account for a guest complaint, even if there's no evidence, suspicion of fraudulent behavior, comments made outside the platform, or simply for being in an area where regulations have changed. And the most painful part, there's not always an appeal process. I've seen cases where hosts have their future bookings canceled and Airbnb refuses to explain why. This is where many hosts feel the hardest hit. When things are going well, everything is digital, fast, and automatic. But when you need real help, everything is slow, generic, and impersonal. It's a frustrating experience, especially when your property is your main source of income. And even so, with all these risks, there are thousands of people who buy properties specifically to rent them out on Airbnb. Investors, young couples, even retirees, all convinced that it's the new golden goose. But is it really worth investing in a property just for that? Or are they buying dreams disguised as opportunities? There are properties that generate good income, of course, but the reality is that the numbers aren't as spectacular as they seem. Plus, if you buy with a mortgage, you're taking on long-term debt in a highly volatile market that's sensitive to tourism, economic crises, and even negative reviews. Investing for Airbnb is like opening a boutique hotel, but playing by someone else's rules. And if you're not willing to take on the operational, legal, and emotional burden, that business can burn you out faster than you think. At the end of the day, what we look for when we travel is simple: to feel safe, comfortable, and welcome. We want the place where we sleep to deliver what it promises. The bed shouldn't creak, the water should be hot, and there shouldn't be any surprises or hidden conditions. We want what we pay for to be worth it. Airbnb was once that, a revolution. A way to feel like a local anywhere in the world. But today, that promise has worn thin, because as users, we've often learned the hard way that not everything that shines in the photos is what awaits you when you arrive, that the cozy home can turn into a list of ridiculous rules, that if something goes wrong, help doesn't always come, and that the savings you expected can end up costing you much more, in money and in peace of mind. So, is it worth booking on Airbnb? That depends on you. If you play it safe, do your research, choose carefully, and accept that nothing is perfect, then maybe yes. But if you expect flawless service, like in a good hotel, with clear guarantees, defined standards, and zero risks, you might want to think twice, because a trip shouldn't be a gamble, much less a disappointment. If you've ever had a bad experience on Airbnb, or a surprisingly good one, tell me about it in the comments. That way, we can help each other out and stop falling for the things no one tells you before you book.